we have here two of our resident thriller writers. Well, I often think our thrillers writers don't get the exposure they deserve.
I'll agree with that.
First of all, since you don't know who they are, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. Starting with Bill.
All right. Bill. Oh, well, hello, everybody. I don't know how many people there are out there. I hope there are thousands. But anyway, my name is Bill Todd. I've been a journalist most of my life. And I've been writing thrillers for about 10 years or slightly more. And the nice cream bang go past. Yes, I've been writing on and off all my life, but I've been doing the thrillers seriously for about 10 or 12 years now. And obviously the journalism, and I did quite a lot of travel writing as well, has given me quite a useful archive of people and experiences to draw on. And so far, my main run is Danny Lancaster series. Danny Lancaster is a wounded ex-soldier turned very low-rent investigator. And there are 7 books in the series so far. I said I live mainly in Brighton. I've got one daughter and one grandson who, unfortunately, I haven't seen for several months, but I'm hoping to see sometime soon. So I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, thank you for that, Bill. Gordon.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to thank the UK Crime Book Club for all their support that they do for authors. It is really, really appreciated. I'm Gordon Bickerstaff. I was born in Glasgow, spent my youth there, and then moved to Edinburgh as a student. After that, I spent 30 years in the higher education sector teaching biochemistry and also working for the Open University for 25 years. Then I retired, gave up the academic pen and started to write fiction. I still live in Scotland, in central Scotland with my wife, where corrupt academics, psychopaths, serial killers, mystery, murder, and intrigue exist, mostly in my head. I also write thrillers. They feature undercover agents working for a secret government department. There are 7 books in the series, and they take their inspiration from a TV series in the early 1970s called Doomwatch. And in my series, the department is called the Lambeth Group, and they investigate, combat, and protect the country from the world, from those who would seek to use science and technology to harm society. So typically the criminals in my books are terrorists, psychopaths, serious organized crime families, and scientists experimenting with great danger. There are 2 main characters in the book, a scientist, Gavin Shawns, who's an undercover bioscience investigator, and in return for his expertise, he receives funding for his research. He's a loner, a bit reluctant, skeptical, lacking confidence in the undercover work he has to do. He's the weak member of the team. The other member of the team is Zoe Thompson. She's an ex-army captain and section leader for the group. She's special forces trained, smart, strong, determined, and cunning. She does the combat when the criminals are uncovered and inevitably fight back. Her army CO wrote into her record once that Zoe Thompson protects her troop like a lioness protecting her cubs. Powerful, determined, and completely ruthless. That's my background.
Thank you for that, Gordon. That's great. Can I ask you both, how is the current situation affecting you?
Bill, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, okay. From a work point of view, not a great deal, really. I mean, I work from home anyway, and my routine is pretty well set up for the day. So from that point of view, I mean, obviously it has wider effects, but I mean, apart from that, I still get out for a walk every day. The only major difference I'm feeling is that there isn't a pub at the end of the walk. But apart from that, I'm sort of, it doesn't.
You like a beer?
Occasionally, yes, after a hard day's work.
Yeah, I've seen you.
I wouldn't add much to that. Also, working from home, I can still work away as long as the computers are working and everything from the internet is available, then I can keep working. Like Bill, I like to get out for a walk, go for a pint. That would be nice. And I'm looking forward to it when the restrictions are lifted.
I'll drink to that.
Yes.
Yeah. What brought you to writing in the first place? And how did you create your lead characters? Bill, with Danny?
All right. I've always been made. I mean, even when I was a kid, I used to make up stories in my head, and then after a while, I started to write them down. I mean, I have some novels I wrote when I was quite young, which are locked in a vault, never to be opened, because they're pretty dire. But I think everybody probably does that to start with. You've got to break ground somewhere. I mean, Danny had quite a long gestation period, and I mentioned in the introduction that he was an ex-soldier. Danny served as a paratrooper in Afghanistan, where he was wounded. In the very, very first outline for it, he was a Falklands veteran. And I worked on it a bit then, and then with family and work commitments, it was put on the back burner for quite a long time. And then when it came back into being, as I said, he was sort of reinvented as an Afghan veteran. I mean, the thing that interested me was that, I mean, I've never served myself, but quite a few of my family have been in the forces, and I've got, through the journalism, quite a few good contacts. And it just interested me with someone coming back from an experience like Afghanistan and finding that life has gone on largely as normal. And people had no real grasp of what he'd experienced. And added to that, the sort of, or some people might think of it as an old-fashioned attitude where your training is for service, for cooperation, helping others and that sort of thing, which is not always a predominant trait these days, although it seems to have come to the fore much more during the current corona crisis. But it was that idea of sort of somebody who was trying to sort of make a living and get on while being, in many ways, slightly different from all the people around him.
Gordon?
Yeah.
And,
what brought me to writing? Well, I think over the years, having read lots of books, and then came to the realization that I started to think more and more about how I would have developed a plot of the book differently, how I would have changed the characters, and quite a few, how I would have changed the end. I'm personally a sucker for a really good ending. So it seemed natural then to have a stab at writing books for myself. So that's really what got me into writing it, so that I could create stories that I thought could have been made from some of the books that I've read. And carrying on, the great interest for me is to read lots of well-written, good quality writers, because you learn a lot from what they've written and how they have developed their characters and how they lay out a plot. It's the best way to become a writer, is to learn how others have done it. So I've read a lot of really good books and been impressed and thought, I would like to do something like that. I want to have it. So that brings you to do it. The characters that I've got at the moment, the scientist, he is coming from a very dark space and has his whole set of issues. I like the characters to have a history, which influences the choices that they make, and it's a sort of thing that you unfold as the books go forward. So that's one of the great things about a series, is you bit by bit unfold where they've came from and where they're going. And it's the same to some extent with the other main character, Zoe. She's a bigger challenge for me because being a woman, I have to get inside her head, and I don't claim to understand exactly how women work and how they so it's a major challenge to be writing a character who's a woman and making sure you get it reasonably right so that it's believable. So these are major challenges, but it's a challenge I enjoy. It's worthwhile.
Do you have, Gordon, do you have somebody check how you...
Yeah, my wife goes over all the books and she'll say, no, Zoe won't do that. No, Zoe wouldn't wear that. No, Zoe would say that. She would say that. So I do have that kind of back. And it's very necessary because I write from my perspective and I don't want to make her a male. She retains her female identity. So I need female input to say, no, keep that little bit of femininity there. And I have that.
Yeah, makes sense. Bill.
Yes.
Fundamentally, you're writing about a guy with a military background.
Yes.
So how much research do you have to do to cover the military tactics, weapons type stuff?
Fair bit. I mean, I've read widely, obviously, but also, I mean, as I said, quite a long military connection in my family in various conflicts, and through the journalism, I've developed some very good contacts who are helpful with research and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there isn't. I mean, there's the odd sort of shootout and things like that. I mean, before it was stopped, I used to belong to a pistol club, and sort of writing features. You know, I've been on sort of army firing ranges and things like that, and on training exercises, and nothing like Senny Bridge on a rainy day. Well, they're all rainy days on Senny Bridge, but obviously you can't fully understand it without having been part of it. But you can get a good insight, and obviously you can be guided by the people. Rather like Gordon was saying about taking advice from women on women characters. You know, you can't actually be it yourself, but you can get insights and you can you get advice. Because obviously, I mean, unless you're going to write, I mean, unless I was to write about, you know, a sort of late middle age, slightly overweight chap with an overdeveloped interest in beer. I mean, if that was the character, I could do it perfectly because I have 100% insight into his thinking and his, you know. But anything that veers away from that, you've got to combine sort of research and a bit of instinct with whatever advice and guidance you can get.
That's good. I mean, I know because I'm ex-military.
Yes,
in the army. Right, mainly, all right, I was Royal Signals, I was technical, but I did run around playing silly buggers and enjoyed it. And when I read your books, I can see an accuracy in there, which I can relate to. That's why
I am both delighted and relieved to hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, Gordon.
Yes.
I read, when I've read your book, I've only read 2 so far, so I do apologise for that. I can see from your books there is a strong science thread, and this clearly does come from your background. So how much does it actually influence you?
My background provides me with a basis to provide tools for the body. So being a biochemist, then I can think up various ways for bodies to poison people or kill people and damage people. So my background provides a lot of support for that. Although I don't rely on it for every book. The Black Fox, which is the third book in the series, there's very little science in that. That's all about, that book is all about a real mystery, which is the Rudolf Hess mystery, World War II mystery, which is unresolved. So that book links the Americans who guarded him to Rudolf Hess, and he was flying to Scotland, and we believe heading for Loch Ness. So there's a big mystery there of linking Rudolf Hess to Scotland, to Americans, and to Loch Ness. So that's no science in it at all, or very, very, very little. So I don't rely on it all the time. This book has a bit of real history, and of course, having a big mystery of what Rudolf Hess was doing is a mystery, and then wondering if there was a secret behind that mystery. So that book is not got an awful lot of science in it at all. So I don't rely on it all the time.
What's the title of that book?
That's the Black Fox. That's the third in the title. And
it's okay. I'm just making a note to get it later.
Okay.
Right. How much? We'll start with. Go back to Bill. How much planning do you do in advance?
Who's that to?
Bill.
Oh, right. A fair amount. I mean, I like to have a continuous thread, beginning, middle, end. I mean, quite often it changes direction halfway through, but I like to have a clear outline right from start to finish. And I research the bits that obviously need it, but it tends to be built up as you go on. As I said, sometimes it goes off in directions you hadn't anticipated. Sometimes directions I've actively tried to dissuade it from doing, but it won't have it. I mean, you tend to get, it does take on a bit of a life of its own. And then, you do the research. I mean, the research is quite detailed. I mean, one of the books involved cargo ships and oil tankers, which took quite a while to do. And I've got some quite good port and coast guard contacts with that. And they said there's the military, as I mentioned, and I've got various contacts for medical things. So I do try and make it. I mean, as I mentioned before, there are some books sealed away in a vault somewhere, never to be seen, the early ones. And one of the consistent criticisms of those was there was far too much detail. And what I'd tended to do then is you do an awful lot of research and then shovel because you put in all that time and effort, you were really pleased with what you'd got. You tended to shovel in every last detail, which bogged it down really badly. So I now try and avoid doing that. I think if you can cover with the research any subject that requires research, if you can give a flavour of the fact that you seem to know what you're talking about, if you make it sound believable, you don't necessarily need to ladle in every last detail, but it is worth having the details. So you have the wider picture. You've got the sort of the bottom of the iceberg beneath the tip that actually appears in the script itself.
Right, great. Gordon, planning. How much planning do you do?
For me personally, I can't start a book until I know the beginning and the end. So once I've got the beginning sorted out and the end sorted out, then I can plot a journey from, so I know where the characters and the plot is coming from, and I know where it's heading. Then I can plot a journey through that, both for the characters and for what the story is about. Once I've got these two pillars, these two bookends in place, then I'm comfortable, I'm happy, then I can make whatever choices and twists and turns I want from the beginning to the end. And that will always involve, for me, a bit of research. For the biological, the biomedical stuff, I don't have to go dig too deeply. But for other things, then I do a fair amount of research. But at the moment, because of last year's lot of press about diplomatic immunity, being a big problem. The work in progress I'm doing just now features diplomatic immunity in a particular setting. I don't know anything about it, so I've been doing quite a bit of research to find out what the rules are, what the regulations are, what they're allowed to do, which surprisingly they can get away with a huge amount. So that's going to be a core of the book that I'm doing just now, and that needs a lot of research.
Both of you, do you get, I mean, you must get feedback from writing. How are you finding, I mean, there must be people out there who disagree with some elements of your book, you've got that wrong. Do you get much of that?
You get it from time to time. I think I had one I was implicating Zoe as a member of the SAS or SAS trained. So
Yeah.
a soldier come back to me and said, there are no women in the SAS.
Absolutely true.
And if that's the case, then that's a big mistake, because women bring a lot to conflict situations. They are the most ruthless, they are the most cunning, and they're also deadly. So to have a force without them is a disadvantage.
There is a solid, I mean, I'm ex-forces, and I know that when you go out on exercise or when onto a manoeuvre, you have to carry that kit with you. And you know, it's ammunition and it's a massive load. And there's certainly, without a doubt, some women are going to be able to cater for that. But very few, very, very few. How about you, Bill, with this technical people coming back to you about errors? Or
I can't really think of an instance off the top of my head.
Oh, that's it. You're getting your research right.
I would hope so. I mean, I can't think of anyone who's made any particular point that, certainly not one that's proved to be accurate anyway.
Yeah.
No, just lucky that way, I suppose.
No, that's fair. I'm going to ask you about this. This is the bane of all authors' lives: marketing.
Editing.
Well, I know nothing about editing. I wouldn't even know where to start. I have difficulty editing a bloody shopping list. But marketing.
Yes. It's a challenge.
I'm not the greatest fan of thrillers. However, I have read several, and I've read some of the bigger names, the Reachers and the people like that. And I look at them, and I've read some of yours, and I've said, why are they so popular and these guys are not? It doesn't make sense to me.
I ask myself that question every day.
I mean, I know that your books are as good as anything I've read anywhere else.
But they have a big marketing machine that forces these books into the reviewers and the people in the media who promote books for them. And of course, all of these top authors will write on the cover saying, fantastically brilliant book, according to Lee Child or
yeah.
So they have that massive marketing push, which other folk don't have.
However, I know of a female author who has sold millions of books, and she's totally indie. And her own man, but she has well, I'll tell you now, openly, Louise Ross.
Yeah.
She's totally independent, but she has a massive marketing skill. Yeah. She knows, and I look at it and I think, no, you guys can do far better. I'm quite good at marketing, by the way.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm no good at editing and I'm no good at writing, but I do know a bit about marketing.
On the marketing thing, as you say, I mean, the publishers have huge advertising budgets.
Yeah.
And also, it's very difficult to get books reviewed because a lot of book reviewers, especially newspaper book, that sort of thing, won't touch indies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just as a point of principle.
I am aware of that. I agree with you. But again, we're in a new world. The world is we're online. We have a different world now, and we are in the process of evolving this. I don't know how many people actually sit and read the Times for book supplements and things. But might be a few thousand, but it ain't as many as there is online. That's for sure. So, you know, it's a world that we have to develop. And I'm saying that as a we, because you can't do it by yourself. We have to look at how we can achieve it for people.
Well, what we need is a marketing company who will take on indie authors and promote them and support them. Most of the big marketing companies are only looking at mainstream authors and publishers. We're missing a marketing company that will focus only on indie authors. And if you got that, and they became big enough to have a say and had weight to make a difference, then you would see a change.
Yes, I think you're right.
It's something that leads to some thought, because I actually think there are ways forward on that. Right? I'm very positive when it comes to marketing. I know that what's good and what isn't so good, and I don't see why a lot of Indians are left behind. A lot of it is because they haven't a clue about marketing and don't do it properly. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
No, I think you're right there. I mean, with the marketing, I mean, obviously people write because they want to write.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want to or have any aptitude for the marketing. I mean, I quite often feel, having got one book finished, and you feel like a one-man band. You know, you're trying to write stuff, promote stuff, all that sort of thing. You've got a, you know, symbol under one arm, you know, mouth organ here. Trying to do half a dozen different things at once and not necessarily making a good job of any of them, apart from hopefully the writing, which is the main focus.
Do you think online community can assist you?
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do to some extent, because a lot of people are involved in Twitter and in terms of marketing books, and also on Facebook. But it's an uphill struggle.
I mean, social media is very useful, but there is so much stuff out there. I mean, that it's very difficult to rise above all the waving arms and get noticed.
Well, that's a thought for another day.
Right.
I've got a question here specifically for Gordon.
Okay.
This is from Caroline. Do you think anything like the Lambeth Group exists in real life?
I'm certain there is a department somewhere that is keeping an eye on particular threats and potential threats, just like they're looking at potential terrorist threat and other threats to the infrastructure. They'll be looking at biological threats, people who could create bioweapons, and there will be there's two sides to it. There's looking and there's doing something about it. I'm quite certain they'll be watching and picking up intelligence from particular universities where there are places which might be a hotbed for things going on that we wouldn't want. So I'm quite certain they're doing that. Now, the other side of the coin, doing something about it, well, I think they may well pass that on to MI5 or have a department in MI5 that would pick up on any tangible threats.
Right. Bill?
Yes.
What's next for Danny?
Oh. Well, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
That's easier said than done.
At the moment, I've got a bit of a problem. After the last one, Danny 7, Last Orders, I fancied doing something different, perhaps doing a one-off standalone. And I started working on that, and I had an idea for Danny. So the two at the have recently been sort of progressing along in parallel, but it's not proving these. It's a bit like trying to ride two horses at once. You've got one foot on one saddle, one foot on the other, and every so often they try and go in different directions, which gets very uncomfortable. So at some point in the very near future, I'm going to have to make a decision, put one on the back burner and go with the other. But at the moment, I've made my mind up. But you'll hear something soon. Watch this space.
Good. We've got quite a little question here from a user. I'll start with Gordon. What are you both working on at the moment?
At the moment, Book 8 in the Lambeth Group series involves Gavin and Zoe. It's difficult to say too much without giving away what's going to happen, because all that's in my head at the moment. The central theme is diplomatic immunity, and there's a country in Central Asia which has got property in Scotland, and there is a suspicion that they are doing some really nasty things. Now, the problem with diplomatic immunity is the police can't go onto their property. No one can go onto their property to find out what's going on. So the only way that they can get a handle on what these people are doing is for someone to go undercover. So that's what Gavin does. And of course, it all goes pear-shaped, and he has to be pulled out and he has to be rescued. And the reason that Zoe is in these pictures because these people will come after him, and then there will be a fight, and she will have to deal with it. So it's the same theme as before, different story because of, and it was really the diplomatic immunity story last year which settled in my mind that you could focus something on that. So that was a bit of news media that gave me the impetus for the story I'm working on just now.
Okay, Bill, what's your standalone about?
Well, I'll refer you to my previous comment that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to say too much because I said it's still very much a work in progress, but I don't think it would give too much away to say it's a pursuit over a 24-hour period.
Oh, right. A chase.
A chase.
So, yes. I shall say no more than that.
Okay, you can handle this one before I move to Gordon. What is the secret to building suspense?
Building suspense, that requires believable characters who are going to, a reader's going to feel empathy with, putting them on a journey with twists and turns, so they don't always know where it's going. And then placing events or scenes in front of them that put them in danger or threat. That will build suspense, but you first of all have to have believable characters, people who your reader is going to feel they're not quite family or relatives, but they're the next best thing. And these people are getting in harm's way because of the way the plot is going or the way the bad characters are developing. If you get that mixture right, so that your characters are in a dangerous situation, and you want to build that up, so you do breadcrumbs leading up to a situation or a scene finally going to come to a head, then that builds suspense for the reader. And when I like to do that, I write twisty turny stories, so I like to do that a few times so that there's various elements of suspense building up throughout the book.
Right, there we go. How do you build suspense?
I'd agree with Gordon about the characters. You've got to have people that people are interested in or identify with or feel they know, which is I mean, it's interesting. I mean, everybody complained, excuse me, about the Jack Reacher film because Tom Cruise was far too short for the part. But I mean, I've spoken to people who like Danny, and all of them have a different idea of what he looks like and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is obviously they're quite invested in that sense. And I mean, as far as the suspense goes, I think again Gordon mentioned the sort of trail of crumbs. I mean, you've got some possibly, you know, some sort of vague resolution in the distance that people want to get to, and then they're following. And they obviously another aspect is, you know, they follow the crumbs and they trying to second guess what they think will happen, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're completely blindsided. And I think that builds a momentum to make them want to go sort of quick, faster and faster to find out how it's going to end. So it's a question of getting those little kinks and twists and keeping people with you along, you know, giving them something, but perhaps confusing them at the same time, keeping them off balance.
I apologise, I don't know who writes these questions, but what's the most gruesome way you have killed someone off in one of your books? Go on, Gordon.
The most gruesome, I think in Deadly Secrets there was people put into a hopper which was used to make fertilizer, and they were just dumped into the hopper and switched on. So there was blood spurting everywhere and bones crunching and so on. I think that's the most gruesome one that comes to mind.
Okay. Bill?
I did. One of them involved that there was a fight on the roof of a cable car, and one chap pitched off down a mountainside, which was a. I mean, when I was a kid, one of my favourite films was Where Eagles Dare, and it was a bit of an echoing of that going on.
I like that movie.
The other one, probably the most grisly one, was a fight on the tarmac at Shoreham Airport, and one chap fell back into a rotating propeller blade, which was
Messy.
quick but messy. Yes.
Right. One from Carl. Who designs your book covers?
I have a book designer. I've used two book designers. I think the first 6 books were designed by a designer called Clarissa Yeo, Y-E-O. So it's handy to have the one person doing it because then they keep the brand together. So I have a book designer that does them for me. Bill?
All right, yeah. I normally sort of come up with an idea of what I think might encapsulate the story, and then there's a guy, a really, really good guy, lives in Cornwall. I used to work with on one of my newspapers as a graphic artist, so I give it to him, and he normally bursts out laughing and comes back with an improved version, and it sort of evolves from there. There's a bit of tweaking along the way, and but yeah, it works well.
Well, another one here. Have you ever cut a character before you follow development?
Have we cut them out, you mean?
Yeah. I believe that's the question, yeah.
Very probably, yes. Some characters have a short lifespan in order to develop the plot. So there were some people who are in it for a very short pace of time. They have to go in order for the thing to move in a different direction. So yes, I have taken out people before their time.
Right. William?
Yes, I mean, similar sort of thing. I mean, there was one book, God Lives Cuckoo, where I needed a certain number of casualties, and I realised that, I mean, there were some who were unique to that book, but then I suddenly realised that I needed more, and a couple of regular characters disappeared.
Oh, dear.
But then again, I think that, I mean, I thought I justified it at the time as a technical necessity, but then you never always develop someone right the way through, because I mean, like, you know, in life, people are randomly plucked away it's an unexpected time or by an unexpected means, and rather like the situation at the moment. And I don't think that causes a problem. I could have done things with them had they survived, but they served a higher purpose at the time, I think.
And it's equally important not to take people out, because you may well want to bring them back. I've had characters in later books who had a role to play in earlier books. So you develop them to a certain level and stopped, and then bring them back to contribute a bit more. And some of them bite the dust then, others carry on.
I've got one here from Alexander James Orley. It says, hello to both writers on the panel. You've both written lengthy series. How important do you think it is to have links to previous books? And if you do this, does it cause you problems?
Every book, well, I mean, speaking for my series, I tend to write the books to be standalone stories. There's underlying threads that pass through all of the books, and there are recurring characters. So that doesn't present me with any problems, because I always write the book as a standalone. So I don't write it so that people have to have read the previous book to know what's going on.
Yeah.
The stories are always separate. The foundation is characters who continue into the next book, not the story. The story is always standalone. And to help anyone, I add a couple of study notes at the back of my book so that anyone who didn't understand where the things were coming from can pick that up. So it doesn't personally affect my series.
No, I'd agree with you. Yes, I mean it's the same with me. I mean there are 7 Danny Lancasters, and they're all self-contained. And I mean over the whole series, the characters develop, the backgrounds develop, their lives change, and all that. But each story stands alone, and within each book, if there is any relevant information from a previous story, then that is incorporated.
Yeah.
I mean, not in tremendous length, but there's just enough basic information to realise that what's happening in the book you're reading follows on from some previous event.
Okay. I've got here. Who would you cast as the main characters in movies of your novels?
I've thought about that. For Zoe, I think Scarlett Johansson, the Black Widow, she would be brilliant. She's got the right confidence, the right determination. She's smart. She knows how to win. I think Scarlett Johansson would be great. For Gavin, probably Ewan McGregor. Exactly.
And who's going to have the leg cut off for you, Bill?
Oh, well, I mean, Danny Lancaster is early 30s now, about 6'2". So obviously I'd probably opt for Tom Cruise just for the box office potential. But as far as actors go, I've thought about this before, and I really can't think of anyone who springs to mind. I think it might be a case of, if I actually if I was fortunate enough to see someone in the role, I would probably think, yes, why didn't I think of that before? But I really can't pin someone down.
Have either of you got books coming out this year? When you saw when?
You asked right at the very beginning where this virus thing was having an impact. It is affecting the speed of writing, and normally I would aim to have a book out by August, September, but I think it's going to be later, so it might get towards the end of the year.
Okay. But we will be informed, won't we?
Yeah, of course.
Bill?
Yes, I'm not sure. It depends on which horse I jump on, really. I'm not sure I'll be able to manage it in my time, but as I said, if I were to jump off one or decide on which horse I'm riding, fairly quickly. It would be maybe Christmas, but I'm not going to commit to it at the moment till I'm sure.
That's fair enough. That's life. That's life. And have you any questions for each other?
Well, I think you've asked the question I was going to ask Bill, and that is what does the future hold for Danny? Is he going to stay as he is, or is he going to go into the police, or is he going to stay as a private investigator?
Yes, I don't really see him in the police, but
Not with one leg.
I'm not sure. I mean, again, it's sort of a bit up in the air at the moment. It depends on how that particular horse, we'll call that the left-hand horse. It depends how that finishes up going. But I'm sort of got a particular career path for him. He's very difficult to employ, really.
Yeah. So
doesn't settle easy.
You haven't got a series of stories lined up for book 8, 9, and 10.
I've got ideas, but then I wouldn't put them strongly as stories. It depends, I mean, one might affect another. So there's no sort of marked out line of, trajectory, but there are lots of possibilities. So I shall see which way it goes. As I said, I've got to actually make a decision sometime soon and commit to one or the other.
Okay. Gordon raised the subject of editing earlier. You both have editors.
I've got an editor, and she's very tough. And it's very tough when an editor comes back and says, "No, I don't like this. Take this out. I want something different." That's hard. Yeah. And sometimes it requires a bit of convincing, because you've put a person or a plot line in place and you think it's having the right effect. So when someone comes along and says, "No, this doesn't work, think again," it's tough. And you're on your own. An editor can give you advice, but at the end of the day, the writer, the author, has got to make the final decision. And sometimes if the editor is clear enough, you can say, "Okay, right, understand where you're coming from. I can see what you mean. I agree." But sometimes you're not sure that that's the right thing to do, but you have to make the decision.
Bill?
Yes, I mean, editing is not my favourite activity. I mean, having spent so long in journalism, I mean, the inclination is to leave it to the last possible moment to gather as much as you can before you crash your story out, and then it's turned around very quickly. So the slow process of editing I find teeth-grindingly awful. And there are people who have made points that I've disagreed with and subsequently wished I'd gone with their idea. So I do find it. I mean, it's obviously it's an essential job, but I can't say I enjoy it.
No, I don't.
It's a necessary evil.
And can I ask you, both of you, what are your most memorable moments as authors? That's got you stumped.
I think probably seeing a paperback for the first time, getting that through the post, that then became real. It wasn't such a big deal for me because I had already written a couple of textbooks and I got them in the post, and that was really exciting. Yeah. But to get a fiction paperback was quite exciting. I think that was quite a memorable moment for me. One of my books won an award, and that was quite exciting. But I think getting a physical paperback in your hand was great, I think.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah. The smell.
Smell, the glue.
The smell of the paperback.
Yeah, the smell of the glue.
Yes, I mean, I could see. I mean, I would agree with that. Cutting the box open and peeling the packaging apart, and you just see the cover gradually emerge, and then the smell as it emerges. I mean, one of the things was for me was probably my second Amazon review. I would have said the first, but it was a one line. It was one of those one line, "This is rubbish," 1-star review. Which, why, I don't know. It didn't. I mean, it wouldn't have been so bad if he'd explained his reasons why. I mean, after that, it got quite a few quite reasonable 4- and 5-star reviews. Second one was nice, so I always treasure that. And I mean, being asked for the first time to sign a paperback was quite nice, because I thought, I mean, in the back of my mind, there was sort of, it's only sort of, there we are. I've done a few now, but just sort of in the back of my mind, I think, was it's only the sort of, the top flight writers who get asked to do that, and I've found that people were actually quite chuffed to have a sign done, which I was.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fallacy. It is real. We like a book. We like a signed copy. And it doesn't matter who the bloody author is. It's yeah. I'm going to ask you, do you celebrate each publication day? Well,
yeah, with family, yes. With family.
I've usually tried to sort of invite people who've contributed in some way, or family out for a drink. I mean, not a major party, but and try and get people who helped. Although, as I've said, I've been sort of proofreaders, and I'm in my graphics guys in Cornwall, so it's a bit difficult to gather everyone together, really. But do something to market. Certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, I see this from so many authors, so many proofs going out, NetGalley and whatever. You haven't got any left to sell. There's so many go out that way. But I suppose it starts the ball rolling.
Yes.
It gets interest, and if you get interest, then the ball starts to roll. Yeah. And it's important for new books, to get a kick and to get in to people's minds that it's available. Otherwise, it's a very, very slow process. So it does need a bit of a kickstart.
Partly that, and partly the reference to the marketing comment earlier. I've had not a vast, quite a few people who've reviewed one of the Dannies and said, and it sort of contains the line, "Why have I never heard of you before?"
Yes.
Which again is purely a marketing.
Yeah.
I've been here for quite a while, but no one's found me.
I've got one last question, I think. Are your books, or are your characters based on real people?
I would say they're probably an amalgam of people I've met, people I know, people I've imagined, and people who I know sort of on an occasional basis. So in other words, I don't really know. I know all of them, but I don't really know them in detail. So I think my characters are an amalgam of a whole different set of elements. And what you do is you pick elements of somebody's character or feature, and you put them together to make the character that you want. That's the way I do it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that entirely. I mean, it's partly based on real people with other characteristics. Some are amalgams of people, a trait from someone, an expression from another. And I mean, I think with Danny, there's a sort of an element of living vicariously. If I was sort of in my early 30s and had his opportunities, that is probably what I would be doing. But I can sort of live vicariously without getting out of an armchair. So there is an element of that. But it's a sort of mixing a cocktail, really. It's getting different ingredients and trying to get them mixed to the right consistency.
Yeah, and to make them believable.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the key thing.
Do you have beta readers, both of you?
I have a couple. I'd like more, but I have a couple who give me immediate feedback, usually at a fairly early stage. Usually enough feedback for me to get major things sorted out if it's something that needs straightened out right away. So I have a couple of beta readers.
Yeah, same here. I've got a few people that will go through it and point out any inconsistencies and that sort of thing, which is really handy.
I mean, beta readers are very important because for you writing, you're invested in it, you've got it in your head, and there's things there that you don't see. And a beta reader can scoot right through that and say, no,
absolutely.
Yeah,
you can get tunnel vision when you're writing, and I mean, quite often I use friends, but I have to be careful. There will be someone who actually say what they think and not say what I want to hear.
That's the trouble with friends, isn't it?
that's correct.
Yeah, I know some people who will do that, but there are others, who wouldn't want to upset you, sort of thing, after you put in all that effort, which is not really what you want.
Well,
no, that's true.
But you can say something negative-ish without being offensive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and very often, if you understand what they mean and realise that it's correct,
yes,
then you value.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the sort of blinding flash of inspiration. How did I miss that?
Yeah. Right, gentlemen, we're coming to the end of our time.
All right. That flew by.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. I'd like to echo what Gordon said at the beginning about the fantastic job you guys have done in magicking this up in a matter of weeks.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's quite an achievement, really. You got a packed program over the weekend.
And most of that's down to Caroline, actually.
Well, I think you guys should
well done,
I think you should be put in charge of sourcing PPE. Get it sorted in no time at all.
Oh, we could do that. So what are your plans for the rest of the evening, gentlemen?
Oh, I'd like dinner.
Yes.
Was it that time?
Yes.
A bit early for dinner.
Well, get it made, get it started.
Oh yeah, good idea. Bill?
Yes, quiet evening in. I shall have to. I mean, I'm in the living room doing this at the moment, and I shall have to evacuate all my equipment now because my wife will want to watch Pointless at 5:15. So.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Would be in way there.
Followed by The Chase.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's
straight back to normal life.
Okay, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope people out there see it the same way.
Yeah, really good fun.
Yes, it was brilliant.
Look forward to the rest of the weekend.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you.
All right. Great.